Hello and welcome. So in this class, we're going to see how we can retrieve data from our database. So here is Firestore DB where I have some data here. So I want to retrieve this data that was submitted from this screen, and I want to display it here on this screen called guest list. So we are going to be doing that now. Alright. The first thing we need to do is we have to import a few things from Firestore. We have to import collection. We also need to import snapshots. We need to import query, and we need to import orderBy, because the aim of this class is to learn how to do compound querying. That's querying based on a particular field, or just like filtering what we want to display. Just okay. Alright, so also we need to import a use effect and a use state so that we'll be able to manage the state of the data when it changes. And the use effect, we are going to use it to fetch the data, because we need to fetch the data after the component mounts. So that's the use of the use effect. So after importing all these things, I'll call on a use effect here, and the use effect takes a callback function. Okay, so this use effect here, we are going to first query the database. So I'm going to say constant q, it's just a parameter name, it could be anything, which is equal to, we call on query, and then call on collection inside the query, and then the collection will provide us with the DB and also the DB name, which in this case is guests. So this DB name is coming from our initial action here, which was to save the user data. So we see that here we have a DB called guests. Also, inside the collection, we want to filter it based on order by. And this order by, we're going to be using this field here known as created at. So we want to display this data based on time that the data was created. So this is what we're going to use here, created at. Alright, so here I'm going to say created at, then we can either sort in ascending or descending. So I want to use descending. So that's step one. Step two, before we wrap everything in a try catch, we need to run a cleanup function after the component mounts. So I'm going to say let unsubscribe, then on the second part now, we are going to say in a try catch, we are simply going to say unsubscribe is equal to on snapshot. Yes, we also need to import on snapshot, because we need to get real-time feedback when we do this. On snapshot, and on snapshot takes two parameters, the callback function and this initial query that we had here called q. So I'm going to pass in q, pass in a comma, and then pass in a callback function here. So this callback function also takes a parameter, so I'm going to call it query. I'm going to just give it parameter name as query snap. It's just a parameter name, can be anything. Also, this information we're expecting, we have to save it somewhere. So I'm going to declare an array to save it. So I'm going to say constant guest list data. It's equal to an empty array. Now I'll simply say query snap, that is this parameter here, dot for each, because it's an array, and you know that for each also takes a callback function, and then we have to pass in the parameter here doc, so that for each of these documents in this array, what do we want to do? We simply want to push them to this other new array we created. So I'm going to say for each of these documents, yes list data dot push. I want to push anything in that array into this guest list data. The first thing is ID, and I'm going to go for doc.id, and then I'm going to spread the rest of the data with doc.data. Okay, so after doing this, we can add a console.log here to confirm that the data is actually coming. Then I pass in what? The guest list data. Good. Then the outside this particular unsubscribe function here, before the end of the try, I simply set the data. So I'm going to set guest list, set guest. This set guest is coming from our use state here. So I'm going to set guest to the data, which is guest list data. Also, I have filtered guest. So I'm going to also, well, it's not really necessary. It's based on the initial UI that I have, but this alone, let's just stick with this. Then, if there's an error, console.log such error, and then we pass in the error. And because this is a use effect, we have to also pass in a dependency array here, and we need to call the function here for cleanup. So I'm going to return a callback function here, and I'll pass in a parameter of unsubscribe, and then I'm going to call the main function unsubscribe. Okay, so all I have to do now is go to I'll go to my flat list where I'm displaying this data and passing this. Since I set the data to guests, I'm going to just pass in guest here. That is the initial guest data. So I'll just scroll down to my flat list, and then here I'll pass in guests. So let's have a look at our console. Oh, this one. So I'll refresh again. Good. So we can actually see on the console.log that the data is coming. We can see it here. So let's see how the data can actually be displayed also. Mm, Okay. All right. So I'll just set filtered guest. I'll also set filtered guest. Set filtered guest to guest list data, and then I'll pass in filtered guests here. So I'll simply pass in filtered guests. With this, I should be able to see it in my UI. So we can actually see that the guest count has changed to 2. That means the information is actually here, but maybe just some UI issues making it not to display. Although this class is not about the UI, this class is about fetching the data itself, which is what we have successfully done here. As you can see, we fetch this data based on the most recently created. So if we actually check the time here, you can see that this data up here was the most recently created data. See that here. And that's how we can use compound querying in React Native to query our Firestore DB. Alright, I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.